Oh, my goodness. Yeah. Please. Let's pass one thing.
They'll be able to hear it online. We were expecting potentially somebody who's going to give public comment.
Ready to go?
Yep.
Yeah, call to order the Clean Water Commission June 4, 2025 meeting. And our first order of business, so I guess, is to ask how much time do we have left before we adjourn this meeting? Are we still going to the 8 o'clock hour, or what's our timeline?
That would be my recommendation, especially for those who have to leave. If there are those who want to stick around and talk longer, you can, but I just want to be respectful for those who have to.
Okay. Well, following the call to order, let's decide what we need to prioritize.
Okay.
So call to order. And we would go for the roll call vote. The roll call.
Tracy Caravallo here. John Chattel.
Here.
Alejandra Cortez. She messaged saying she would not be here. Glenda Willie.
Here.
Ted Gathey.
Present.
Emily Hess. Here. Allison Schweitzer. Here. Rudy Salacori.
Here. Yeah, next order of business is to approve the April 2nd, 2025 meeting summary. Are there any changes, additions, corrections to that meeting summary? Not, I would entertain a motion to approve. All those to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Moves in second. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Do we have any public comment?
Yes, I received an email from Mr. Peter Bracci and forwarded that to you all in your meeting packets. It is regarding the his concerns about the homeless encampments is in the city of Vancouver and their impact on the watersheds and Burtbridge Creek and a couple of the other areas of concern. And I want to say his specific ask was for recommend the city of Vancouver revise its stormwater plan to include these, and that that the county help with some oversight on a countywide level.
I guess I would respond by saying that I know we've heard from Mr. Rocky before on this issue going back quite some time. And any oversight we have over the city of Vancouver is pretty much non-existent. So, you know, I think it's best that he take this matter up with the city, that the entity that's jurisdiction and control over that area, and recognizing that they are, as far as I know, in the process of disbanding camps up and down the Burtbridge Creek area, including the ones at Andreessen, and have already moved to get the ones on the west end removed some time ago. So I think his best opportunity is to address this with the city directly through the Clean Water. But I would entertain any other thoughts, my fellow commissioners.
Do we know that city? Do we know anything?
I think there is a history of tsunami and recently around the town. It's in that creek. It's a very sensitive issue, and that's not. It is an environmental challenge, but also social. And I agree with Ted's interpretation in that we don't have any clear jurisdiction for and I think the most important thing is that we can get to the city of Vancouver.
Okay, our next order of business, I think, is just to prioritize what we should be covering in the limited amount of time that we have left tonight.
I would recommend that we focus on work group updates. Anything regarding the staff liaison report or the manager's update, I didn't prepare tonight that we couldn't send. To hear what was discussed in your work groups and where you're landing on ideas for priorities.
Okay, let's immediately go into that then. The first is the climate change implementation. Rudy, that's yours.
Yeah, so I have not put in as much work as my colleagues have and be considered AWOL sometimes at some points. We started off with a bit of an email thread, and then we met about a month ago to talk things through. Alejandro really put a good suite of priorities together, and we've been talking some stuff through. We're still waiting for the climate plan to be adopted for us to really fully engage. But in the meantime, I think my colleagues have been working with Devin and Alice to get a folder, get that set up, and start to think about what we can actually impact and affect. Does that sound reasonable?
And remind me who else is on that work group. Tracy, John.
Yeah.
I would love to hear if there are some ideas that you job you want to share what's going on in
What kind of climate change? I had a chance to set and identify some goals and maybe look into. But I think an update on what will ultimately do and what see our role is helping to provide support. But again, quite the content. Devin, you and I had a chance to talk about some infrastructure. Get a hold of different things are integrated. The chance to look at the projected flow increases.
I will just add that Jenna Kay is the lead for developing the climate, they're called the climate change element comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan has to be final and adopted by December 31st of 2025. Alice has arranged for Jenna to come to our next meeting in August to give an overview of that climate element, the process and the final policies and where there's opportunity for us to help implement those policies. I've also reviewed them. There's a lot around tree canopy, a lot around stormwater management. Specifically, John requested looking at how we, in our capital plan, how we prioritize and consider climate change and the projects that we implement. Here at Unicon, I know Allison was, there's a presentation too that at the Department of Ecology level, they're starting to integrate climate change into the required storm modeling. So there's a lot of, I think those are great ideas for future discussion and work, and hopefully having Jenna come to the next meeting will also give us more foundation to help us.
Yeah, so all these new comp plans that are getting written, this is the first time in the GMA's new rule set that climate change is actually an element, required element.
Correct. It was a proviso that required the Department of Commerce to work in partnership with Fish and Wildlife, and they established a multi-agency team to come up with framework criteria for what cities to plan this time. Thinking about climate change.
I think we can also.
Yeah, I really hope that we can get on top of things before they're built. You know, and like all these builders, I was talking with Glenn earlier today about how the builders like, oh, we're green builders, but like, what are they actually doing to be, you know, real green builders? And And I thought that Sue really, the
Chairman,
Mayor Marshall was, indicating today that she's open for us to, say, here's some codes that we need to change. So she really seems open to making some changes. I really appreciate that, and it's very exciting to me.
Well, and here by ignorance here, so homeowners association. What they require from landscaping.
Absolutely.
Are they open to?
Well, there's actually there's a city law, there's a state law that you could interpret that says that you can't stop someone from putting in drought tolerant landscape. That's what.
This is your thing.
Yeah. Opposite that. Yeah, it's RCW stuff.
Sure.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's something we really should get out publicly, because there's a lot of people who think they're stuck. They're stuck with loans.
Yeah,
Exactly.
that's why I brought it up.
Yes, absolutely.
I want to get rid of mine. It's a mess already.
I get rid of a lot of
Last year long. Yeah, it looks pretty bad.
I think the next area is Alexandra's. Can someone else speak for her?
Yes.
On community engagement?
So community engagement and inclusion, the leader is Alejandro Cortez. Members are Chappelle, Cortez, Hess, and Schweitzer. They met on May 13th and on going to be meeting on June 10th. And she said that a quick recap of our kickoff community engagement group meeting talked about ways to connect with the community and make sure people understand who we are and what we do as a commission. Eric Lambert suggested starting with a general overview, what the commission is, how we work with the county, and with the basics of stormwater management, then tailoring the messaging depending on who we're talking to. We had a very good discussion about reaching out to the HOAs since they manage stormwater facilities and may be unsure about government involvement. Commissioners might be well positioned to make these connections since we are not regulatory. We'll need to figure out which HOAs to focus on, maybe based on their size or proximity to key watersheds. We also talked about the value of attending local events like Project Voice and the Lower Columbia Nature Network, and reaching out to the trade and affinity groups like the Washington Landscape Professionals Association and local contractors. The goal is to reach a broader cross-section of the community. We also want to make the stormwater management plan easier to understand and to share. A one-page summary is in the works for that, and there's interest in engaging youth through schools and summer camps with a focus on making the topic fun and approachable for kids. Next steps include reviewing a list of potential groups and events to reach out to and developing presentation materials. Eric was able to track down some useful resources like past event lists, and Alice is looking for an old commission presentation we might be able to reuse. And the next follow-up meeting is set for June 10th.
Eric, thanks that he and his staff. But I think that we'll have a chance to bring our ideas once we've looked at that list and what we want.
And perhaps, I don't know if I've seen that list. I'm glad he was able to share it, and that might be something
It's posted
in your folder. Fantastic, to share with others and for everyone to keep contributing as well to the list if there's others.
Yeah, was it Councilor Fuentes this morning that talked about, hey, are you touching nonprofits here? So just from those who weren't able to make that meeting, nonprofits probably in that big spreadsheet, mother of all spreadsheets, I don't know, but include them. And, they do have active interest, especially at the HOA and privately held stormwater facilities. I'm one of the founders of Palos Verde Society, and that's a big focal area for us. So
he also mentioned Fourth Plan Forward, which is not necessarily a conservation group, but it's a group that would give us more access to different cultural. Yeah, so that's something we definitely ought to reach out to that group.
You know, right now, so subcommittee, this to that folder.
Actually, no, no, you don't. Only that your subcommittee has access to it.
I'm saying the same thing.
Okay.
The ground subcommittee.
Right.
folder. Would it be possible to make anyone on the commission access all folders? Because that way, we file that, we can say, you know what, you can find it right here. But all the email, it's a bit stacked and hard to sort. Say, yeah. Look at it, add to it.
Yeah, if we have,
Yeah, the problem, of course, is the only challenge is OPMA, and that's the one thing, and that's why we can have those, why you're allowed to have edit privileges in your work groups is because you are not a, you don't have a, yeah, well, and, right, and you don't have you're not having a forum. So that's why we can't have you have editing rights and the,
But
But a
we're not,
resource
we're not
library.
taking,
essentially.
We're not-
right,
we're
but
not
I could
taking
put
that.
it in each of the group's folders.
right, but that, unless we engage in a circular conversation with the majority of our board, our commission, we're not taking any kind of formal action. We're contributing information. And the important thing is not to engage back and forth, to have back and forth discussions. I think that's what you're concerned about. We'll create a conversation that turns into a meeting. But I think contributing to an individual folder doesn't necessarily create that OPMA problem.
I might recommend that
We
we
can check.
check in and talk.
I'll check with
Just
the,
make sure, because I think resource libraries and sharing information, having people review documents, it's just when everyone's in a document. Reading, there's a forum and OPMA, but we'll get back to
So
you.
maybe read only, and at the worst, we're coordinating and sharing information.
If
You
you
know,
leave it at a read-only level, I don't see how there could be a violation.
Yeah, you're not committing and you can create a comment folder where you can just put documents there so we can go with.
I like that idea, like a resource library with non-working.
Yeah. Just view it.
I think I have that already as like a miscellaneous, there's a miscellaneous folder in there. So I can make sure that there is another folder that has that aspect, or it'll put it in that one.
Yeah, whatever we do, we want to be OPMA compliant, and so we will salute and move forward, let you guys get back.
Yeah, we'll check in.
Do we want to move on to non-point course symposium?
Yeah. And these other companies. So there are 4 of us, both facing. And so we can start with ideas, I would say. And Alice provided all of emails and history. You know, we are still talking about what would be pollutants we would want to focus on, source, and exactly outcomes and messaging of the meeting tomorrow, where Devin will be your history, your perspective, write the document that I know I need some interpretation on. That would be good, but and so knowing we those ideas into action fairly soon, so we can say would be speakers. Right, so
We had a rough idea of agenda being like problem context setting in the morning for the symposium, and then building into more like opportunities and ideas for collaboration solutions in the afternoon. That's fun.
I've been reaching out to Pennsylvania, which has a lawn to habitat program that they've been implementing. And so I've gotten in touch with a few people and now I'm in touch with the woman who runs that program. So. Yeah, that was locally done. Just the advertising magazine in Ridgefield.
Yeah.
And somebody did that. I saw it. It was really nice. Yeah.
And Ted and I had a very quick conversation this morning, but it resonated with me. The one thing for not one, as far as pollution, I think what's the point as a title, which I think is clever. But does get that the heart of it is with urbanization of the landscape, there's increased complexity of challenges. So can you achieve the water quality standards? Which ones are achievable? Which ones maybe just don't make any worse? How do you factor climate change into that? Then Ted, what you said, the macro scale issues. But again, like see that because there's more strategic planning and tactical things. So I think those are some things we can pick around.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And you mentioned Alice and I are going to take care of like preserving the room, catering, working with our PIO on news releases, and putting together letters to invite speakers and helping curate the list. But really, what we're looking for is what should the agenda be. Our symposiums in the past have been a lot of like local organizations talking about what they do, which is great, but also would like us to be thinking about are there thought leaders and programs that we do to bring new projects and programs to our area. I mention that because if we just focused again on what's being done, it would be some previous years, but there may still be some opportunities. I'm excited to start hearing more ideas. Different ideas.
Yeah, especially like, this idea of going external a little bit with the ag community is just one example of livestock or crop. Gosh, so much research done in the Midwest and the Midwest and so much really vital information about why or why not, and what programs do succeed and why the buy-in might not be there. And so just as tackling one macro issue, and gosh, they've got years of a running start there. So something to think about.
Even different technologies and policy, like what's the law, authorities. There's probably a lot. You're even learning what King County's doing. Mm-hmm.
The next study is the rate. The next subcommittee is the rate study implementation. And like Rudy, I've been AWOL in that regard because I've been gone for most of May on vacation. So I'm going to have to pass it off to somebody else.
We have our first meeting next week.
Okay.
So our plan for that meeting is to give you a briefing on where we're at. We've been doing a lot of work. So as we're implementing services, we're also, having to look at our assumptions that we made, our cost estimates, where are we coming at on our costs? Do we have enough money? There's some higher level conversations too happening around too, and who can use it. And the commission was very in tune with this, but what we're hearing now is they've expanded who is eligible and what is eligible. So there's a larger interest at the county and if clean water is the best use, and if it's not, then we are back to the table talking about rates. Also, we heard the county is moving back into GMP compliance, so that will make us eligible for capital grants. But if the county is late on submitting, we may go back. So right now, we're assuming very low grant income, but with Marley this year, she is just bringing in millions of dollars. Like I think she's got like 6 million, something like that, in 2 years. So we're very fortunate we can continue to ramp up revenue. But right now, we're 6 months into a 5-year model, and needing to, we're being asked already by our finance team, like, how are you gonna monitor? How are we going to be making sure that as we're hiring and executing services that we're staying free. So hoping we can start digging into those details with the group and engage the work group as a part of our monitoring process.
Yeah, I was really encouraged this morning to hear, particularly Council Member Marshall, be open to the concept of rate increases as a necessity. I was going to raise it, but she did it on her own. She said Clark County has the lowest rate, stormwater rate of any entity. And I didn't want to bring that up, but she brought it up. And so obviously they're aware of it. Their term is going to last close to 2028 when you're looking at coming back for then another review of rates. So I think there's a very receptive council out there in terms of rate studies in the future. Take advantage of it.
And hoping we have a little time after we hear a SNAP update just to talk generally about how the work session went today. But I was pleased to hear that Councilor Little wants to be at the symposium, and Chair Marshall was like, put me on for the welcome. So excited.
And want a bus tour too.
They want a bus tour.
Yes,
Get ready.
I'm ready for a bus.
Start the bus. Start the bus. Yeah, I'm also on that work group too with Ted. And, I'd offer, Devin, one of the things that I've kind of been noodling in my head since we haven't really gathered formally was the idea of, planning, budgeting, execution, looking at different frameworks for risk. And I think you've already kind of established that mind map. We'll be interested to hear kind of what's going on there and how you quantify it. And then developing a mitigation plan for it and having deliberate oversight of, hey, just somebody to kind of keep you honest on your plan. How's this piece going? We don't want to be the entity with the 2,000-mile screwdriver trying to adjust your carburetor. That's, you guys got enough supervision, but we want to help you. So let us know how to best do that too. I think if you kind of come and say, this would be a really good independent view for us, I think that's kind of what we'd like to try and achieve there. Anyways.
Yeah, and we can get into detail.
Yeah, sounds good.
Estimates where we're at. Some things are coming in under, like we estimated the wetland restoration would cost $3.5 million. They came in after that, but things can always get more expensive when you're in the middle of the project.
Who's the contractor?
I think it's Cole. that
Who's
came in.
Paul? Oh, we need to talk about it.
Came in low.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
there's
you did it
We need to
too.
talk.
so there's contractor and contract and sub-consultancy risks too as a part of this that we really want to overlay. Not to say anyone's way better or way under. We just know historically the performance of some of these entities can put us at risk, and we want to identify those early and then manage them so that they don't become an issue for us.
And our challenge is with procurement policies, we to pick the lowest
You
bidder.
have to pick the lowest bidder.
Unless we do a qualifications-based review. This though was specifically, I'm more familiar with doing that for like studies rather than construction projects. So my understanding for like the bid process is lowest bidder versus if we're doing, there's also a financial threshold, my apologies, in the back of my mind, but if it's under a certain threshold, we can go to the MRSC roster and pull a few and do a qualifications review without having to ask for proposals. But this was specifically a construction bid, which
Yeah, they're already qualified publicly. That entity's been qualified and audited for their books. So it does come down to bid publicly.
it comes down
for
to
construction.
the
Okay, because you can, well, I don't know what your rules are, but you can also do a technical narrative, and you can base on you can then kind of ground truth the bid that they give you versus what they write they're gonna do, and you can say, well, that's, And I'll say for the Forest Service, we, although that was not my area, we did look at past performance. And
Yeah, it's, I'm more familiar with like the traditional RFP, we're hiring somebody to do study or plan. I have less experience on the construction bidding, a lot of it is handled by full product plan. My understanding is that the lowest bid is the, let's see, the name's been taken. But I do think we're continuing to, part of our upcoming community-based public-private partnership work will be looking very closely because our work is so specialized. The lowest bid isn't always the best bid for them.
Yeah, your contractor may have unrealistic expectations or won't have the experience to put in a proper bid. Looking at change orders, and, yeah.
The wetland's very difficult.
Very good.
All right. We good?
Good for you.
Snap.
then.
Snapper. All right. Stormwater management action plan. And then our famous phrase, and then there were two. It's Emily and I. Phil was, he was supposed to be a member. Obviously, he's now gone from the commission, but
And he moved out of the county, but he made him.
we had a mad exchange of emails, which led to a nice phone conversation. Emily was kind enough to put together some major takeaways from that. Is like the rate study implementation group. This is much more in its formative stages. The consultant's just been selected. Osborne Consulting. Well qualified. We took a peek at some of the documents there to just kind of familiarize us with who are we working with. So the notion of the stormwater management action plan, the requirement of the NIPD's permit, is they will form all the critical elements to the stormwater management action plan. So that's kind of a pre-execution portion for us to potentially get involved. And in our upcoming meeting that we've scheduled with either Jeff and or you and or I know Rod is going to be there. What we want to be able to do is kind of look at it in, pre and post phases so that if there's something that we can ask of the consultant, that stays in the scope, but to better quantify and better understand, for instance, measures of success. How are you going to quantify when you build this map? Are we achieving goodness in illicit discharge, for instance? So we kind of have an interest in the metrics and shaping that. And then on the execution end, managing that risk again, watching the performance and measuring the performance and saying, hey, we're 8 out of 10 on this area. We're kind of deficient in this area, and just kind of have a, pie chart, goodness of performance when this thing is all live and rolling is one of the ultimate goals. And measuring, how do you measure it? Do you measure it from an ecological lift standpoint on this type of a project versus this? And I'm sure Osborne's got plenty of experience there. They'll be able to tell us a lot of that. The last element about that is this isn't kind of your typical SMAP work statement in that I think the county had some really robust ideas about how to augment and kind of dovetail into a SMAP. And so we're looking forward to hearing about all those bonus features. And we'll try to incorporate some of that, I think, into the formulation of, our involvement on the plan. Emily, any other thoughts?
I'll just say this was a process City of Vancouver went through recently. So we looked at their version of their SMAP that they created. And I had questions about who they used and what lessons City of Vancouver had going through that process, and just trying to learn from the experience of our neighboring jurisdictions. And this.
And for context sake, this will be the Lower Salmon Creek watershed as the focal point, which this map is built around. I think that's the outline construct that you start with is what's the highest priority, biggest bang for it. It's the most urbanized. It's got the potential for some salmon recovery and lift there. So that's in a nutshell. I can't go behind the scenes to tell you how the sausage was made, about how they got there, but suffice it to say that's where we're focused, and that will be the study shed.
And so we're tasked with developing a 6-year plan and a 20-year plan that are actions for all of our programs. So our capital program, our illicit discharge detection, elimination, outreach in a targeted area. Technically, we only have to do one sub-basin, in Lower Salmon Creek, what's interesting is all but 2 subbasins have already extensive subbasin level capital planning done. So we'll be completing, so the full area, we're focusing on Burton Creek and Creek. They just did stream walks of those areas, and that's where most of our capital planning will be happening. And then we'll be getting like a countywide pipe asset management framework and street sweeping plan out of it. There's a lot of really neat things. I will say the level of investment that we're making in our SMAP is relatively high compared to other municipalities. If you reviewed other municipalities, the level of effort and what you can do to be in compliance differs. So we're wanting to maximize what we get out of it to really move us forward. And I think another benefit too is there's been all this planning and different work done in Salmon Creek, but it doesn't all live in one place. So this will bring together all of those sub-basin plans into one spot that looks at, okay, what are the priorities for 6 years? But we've never had a 20-year plan, so this will be our first time having that longer.
Has there ever been a TDML?
Oh.
Has there ever been a TDML study done for Lower Salmon Creek?
Animals,
Oh, that's okay.
There is a TML for Lower Salmon Creek, or for Salmon Creek. It's impaired for, I believe, temperature, pH, and I'm not remembering if it's turbidity or bacteria. Actually, one
Okay,
by Department of Health.
so it needs to be updated in some way.
It probably would benefit from some reopening and looking at where they identify as priority areas versus what we know now, and where we've made progress and achieved implementation versus where they're still working. Ecology has been focusing on watersheds that don't have any KBLs. My understanding in Clark County, the only places that do are Salmon Creek. East Fork has an alternative, an advanced restoration plan. Burgers Creek's is almost done. I think it's been in the review process. And then Lacamas was their latest focus, but I think Salmon Creek, and then I'm forgetting, what's the name of the creek that goes to Steigerwald? Gibbons has a TMDL. Those are the only two with adopted or approved TMDLs. Good job.
good. I think that's it. Thanks.
So regarding the groups, taken for next steps, staff would like to join and debrief and provide some more information. We just really wanted everyone to get together and brainstorm on your own first before we come in and tell you what we think the priorities are. Because one of the things that, like as commissioners, there's a lot of value. You guys can make recommendations on things that I'm not always able to. And I really appreciated a lot of the messaging you shared today and how whole system focused and comments made around working with planning, community development. Sometimes it's difficult for me to make those types of recommendations. So I really appreciate the reinforce that importance.
That was a very encouraging session, I thought. Absolutely. Got a proactive council and take advantage of that. So.
My boss afterwards was like, that was amazing. Very, I don't know exactly what word she said, but that it was a very important and productive presentation. So she was really impressed. They did a great job.
Kudos to you and Alice and whoever formed the text and bullets and gave it some life because it was.
You were just a salesman.
That's right.
You did. I was thinking, if I would have made that script, it would have been terrible compared to what you guys said today. It would have been so sterile. I think I think that Alice and I can share out the rest of our updates over email. do you want to have any other discussion on the work session? We can also send out the recording and the slides from
I
today.
think make the recording available to anyone who wants to see it.
It's usually on the website. I'll be sending it to our public information people, and they convert it into a file that can go onto the website. It can take up to a week, depending on what their load is.
And the only other really critical thing that I would call out is July 16th, we have our joint meeting with the City of Vancouver's Forestry Commission. There's a prep meeting I'll forward it to you between the two chairs. They're really excited about it. And a lot of it will be discussion focused around how we can collaborate. I think 15 minutes we'll give an update on what we're doing. They'll give an update and then we'll primarily be so hoping that folks can make it. It will be hybrid, but it'll be at City Hall and a great opportunity to start making.
And I'd like to add one more item under commission engagement. You guys had invited us to attend the open house for the Gordy Jolma project, and I attended that when it was there with my 6-year-old daughter until, and it was intriguing. Just the number of people showed up. They ended up having to split it in between 2 areas with half of the people outdoors and the other half in their planned area. The neighborhood showed up in force, and talking with my daughter after, she's like, man, they're really concerned about the parking. But it was like the parking, the ponds, and the homeless population that creating this public park is going to create. But it was intriguing to see such a widely attended public community meeting and the resounding messages. Useful thing to do with the legacy lands.
And that's the old Cedars Golf Course.
Oh,
You are correct. Right now, there's a lot of ponds that were managed for irrigation that the turtles like to swim in. From a salmon perspective, they are sources of warm water. And so trying to explain that and communicate that. So it's something, stakeholders have different interests in different uses.
And to show up as a person with absolutely no stakeholder engagement in the project and be like, hey, they have a consultant talking about bringing the salmon back. They really talked about their development plans and landscape architecture, about what the things are going to be for you to
wow.
I just wish people would show up like that to our events.
to your rate study.
Parks did a great job. I mean, I heard there was like 100+ people. And then the East Fork Lewis River groundbreaking. Rudy, I don't know if you were there. If you want to say anything about.
I don't know what to say about it. It was a nice day. It was good to see a lot of people I haven't seen in a long time. That project has been a long time in coming, and it was almost defunded just weeks before there was a move in the Washington legislature to, well, so let me step back. As we saw today, it takes a really long time from concept to implementation for a project. And so I think the state legislature was looking to plug some holes. And so they had pulled a lot of funding from projects that hadn't been built yet. And that was one of them. And so that came into funding in a year of extraordinary resources. So it's good to see that project finally getting done. It's an interesting concept to regrade the entire floodplain to kind of short circuit decades of sediment management that's not getting where it needs to go. And from that project, you can see the next project, which is the existing bits that are,
Right next door.
yeah, we'll all be paying for that in some number.
And it's 1.5 miles. It's been in the works for a long time. It is the most important temperature salmon project in the river. Very important river. It's 5 different populations of salmonids.
Yeah, and I think it might be useful, and I think I mentioned this before, maybe go to the Lower Columbia Fish Recovery Board and see if they want to come and talk about their East Fork Lewis River study, which if you don't know about it,
That's great.
salmon recovery, and long story short, salmon recovery in Washington State is meant to be from the ground up. So that way it wasn't top-down regulatory. And one of those pathways to salmon recovery wasn't just habitat restoration or hatchery management or hydropower mitigation. It also was meant to include partners like the Forest Service, the county, the cities, and all of that in their planning. So it's interesting to see how this recovery plan that was developed with all of these partners, including a lot of municipal planning, what that looks like 30 years later. I think it'd be very informative to say, well, you have this long range plan that has all of these good intents, in place. What happens when only one of those 20 groups comes together and does their thing? So,
Lots of good stuff in there, and land use change, permitting.
septic development. I mean, there's kinds of stuff that it's really quite clear what happens when you have planning that kind of follow through.
That'd be a great board to network with,
Yeah.
whether or not the TAC or the actual board, the commission, or have a request a presentation.
Yeah.
Danielle from Legacy Lands also offered a private tour to the Clean Water Commission if we'd like to at some point go see that. We weren't able to get to the groundbreaking. So
I would love to see that.
yeah, it would be, it's hard to see it all without like flying. But it is possible with some trekking.
They have a lot of drone footage.
We could watch some drone.
Yeah.
footage.
Got our
ATV.
VR glasses.
You got an ATV. I love it.
I didn't see it I wasn't looking for you.
Were you at the
I
Gordon
was.
Children? The
Yeah.
presentations are great. I was like, yeah, let's build this. And then the public started talking. Okay, not everybody's on the same page with this. And that tends to be the case. I mean, we saw that today. And all the different interests in the farm. Would be curious if you thought it was valuable. We can also be brief. Figure out between tours like this and
Exactly.
I love boots on the ground and save natural plants. So yes, only we could like pick some carrots and strawberries that were no patches. I think that's probably it. A lot of the other stuff isn't. Alex, there wasn't anything my priority we couldn't send out, or is there anything else besides the July 16th?
I think July 16th is the only thing. And just for your awareness to be thinking about, and after the chairs meet, and confirm, what they want, but for you commissioners to be thinking about as part of your individual discussions about, connections between clean water, trees, human health, and your purviews and connections. And then also your partnerships and the main messaging that you have on your for your mission moving forward. And then so be thinking about that, and they also in their commission communications, that's a roundtable, and you'll each have about 3 minutes to talk about what you're thinking about, and potentially, what you want to see, where you want to go, what your goals and views and whatever it'll be. So it'll be there, but I just wanted to have that as an opportunity for you to be thinking about that. That was something that they came to, their board met a couple weeks ago, and that was something that they were looking at as having kind of a discussion of having each of the members be talking about your peer review and the connections and the messaging and how you want to bring that out regarding our missions
This is for the
and how they can work.
Yeah, so basically a discussion around the priorities for tree canopy and protection of water quality, health. And I'll be giving a short presentation on our urban tree canopy assessment, which was before that. So you'll have that information. I mean, so the final draft, it has much of it. So you would be getting it hot off the press. I would just ask not to circulate it since we were hoping to do it It is a good read. Probably a lot more to talk about. We're hearing now that ecology is starting to look at trees as stormwater assets, and they are signaling that we're going to tree maintenance and have to classify which trees provide a stormwater function. Also enabling us to plant trees for stormwater specific design specifications. So right now they're having us map it and develop codes and policies, and then we are anticipating some sort of inventory to which ones have stormwater benefits. And then we're probably going to have maintenance requirements, which means so we're watching this unfold. We're seeing ecology requiring through our permit tree maintenance and planting, which like we love trees, right? But we just don't know what it's going to look like yet and how we're going to pay for it.
I don't know, probably mandate maybe, but you know, those kinds of things, sometimes they get a life of their own, and it's good luck trying to quantify all that.
We're still
a
mapping.
challenge. Yeah.
Whereas
Wow.
Vancouver has their inventory, right? So it'll be interesting to compare where we're at.
Yeah.
They're very much. They're very far ahead. They
Yeah.
could meet them.
They've had a 30-year head start.
They do. So we're at the beginning. So that's part of the goal is to learn.
Let's not repeat what, you know, bad things happen to them. Let's get some true lessons learned. And that's kind of what I was looking to try and milk them for, was just this idea of a lesson learned isn't a lesson until you really implement it. And so, you know, that was my curiosity to that meeting. But I think the importance of sharing out meeting minute wise and getting other commissioners that were able to hear this I think can really lift the dialogue in the room for them to be prepared ahead of time. So capturing that and shooting it out to us would be great.
Get the agenda and then the tree canopy assessment. And
Assessment,
we'll have the meeting 23rd. So we'll want to make sure you'll be getting that to provide any input on the discussion.
Great.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I am too.
I think that's probably it. I'm tired. I don't know. We thought you
Been a long day.
Alice is done. Yeah, we're tired. We were all together this morning. We missed you. Rudy.
Mr.
It's okay. You can watch the recording.
Yeah, got your penance.
I was going to use exactly that phrase.
You've been busy.
There
Very busy.
Well, since we don't have a quorum, I guess we formally can't even adjourn. can we?
Adjourn.
Really, we'll just pretend we continue.
Bang the gavel.
Unless there's an objection.
8:25.
Nice.
8:25. Thank you so much, everybody. Great to